There we go. Is that
Okay, back to the housekeeping. A couple of Zoom reminders for participants. For all panelists, this includes all APCD board members. Please remember to mute your mic when not speaking. If you would like to comment, use the raised hand button. To do this, click on the participant icon at the bottom of your screen. The panelist sidebar will appear, and on the bottom right of that sidebar, click on the ellipses icon. From there, the raise hand button should be available. If you are an attendee, this includes all APCD staff and all members of the public. You will be on listen-only mode unless unmuted by the board clerk to provide public comment. Comments from the public are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The public will not be able to share their video or screen even if unmuted. When public comment is called on for an agenda item, attendees may use the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen to express this desire to provide public comment for that item. You will be unmuted when it is your turn. Those participating via telephone can raise their hand by dialing *9. Thank you, and that concludes the Zoom reminders.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in the pledge. Ready? Begin. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of the
of
United
the
States
United
of
States of
America
America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic for which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
And next is approval of the minutes of June 17th, 2021. Is there any discussion of the minutes? May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
I'll move
Julian,
approval of the
approve the
minutes.
minutes. Second.
Director Hart moved and Director Julian seconded. And will you please take the roll call vote, Madam Clerk?
Director Lavanino,
Abstain.
Director Sierra,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Perotti,
Aye.
Director Osborne,
Aye.
Director Murillo,
Aye.
Director Urig,
Abstain.
Director Julian,
Aye.
Director Williams,
Aye.
Director Hart, and Chair Hartman.
Aye.
Oh, we have a participant in the panelist list with the phone number ending in 722. No.
That's Patino.
Oh, thank you, Director Patino.
All right, turning to administrative items, do any board members have items that they would like to consider independently today?
Lavanino.
Yes, which item?
D1.
Administrative item D1, notice of violation report. Receive and file the summary of notices of violation issued and penalty revenue received during the months of June and July 2021.
And
Yeah.
go ahead, Director Lavanino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious from staff if we're seeing a higher number of, most of these were failure to fill out their reports. And I'm wondering if with COVID, if we're seeing a higher number of this, or is this kind of generally where we're at? It just seemed like there was an inordinate amount.
I could respond to that question. We actually talked about it a little bit at the last meeting. We have a new process in place where we're soliciting feedback and timely submittals of our annual reports from all of our sources. And we've seen significant improvements over this process. We've been doing it now for, I believe, 3 years. And this year, we had a significant reduction in late submittals. So while we have a lot on this report, it's just a matter of when we went through that process and when they start getting settled.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other items that directors would like to discuss on the administrative agenda?
I'm not seeing any director wishing to discuss
Okay,
any
last
additional item.
chance to call out. We don't see anything. All right. Is there any member of the public who's pulled any item for consideration?
We received no public comment on the administrative agenda.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to approve the administrative agenda?
Valenino will move the agenda.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Director Lavanino,
Aye.
Director Sierra,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Perotti,
Aye.
Director Osborne,
Aye.
Director Murillo,
Aye.
Director Patino,
Aye.
Director Urig,
Aye.
Director Julian,
Aye.
Director Williams,
Aye.
Director Hart, and Chair Hartman.
Aye. And that
For the
takes
record,
us,
I came in a little late, so it's an aye.
Thank you, Director Nelson.
Thank you.
all right, that takes us to our director's report. Ms. Arlen Janae?
Great, thank you. I'm going to start off, I have 2 items today. I'll keep it relatively short, but I do have a video. I believe everyone can hear me. Correct, okay. I wanted to start off with a memory or remembering Lee Moldaver. Since our last board meeting, we were very sad with the news of his passing. He was a longtime Community Advisory Council member. And like so many others in our county, we were very saddened to hear this news. Among his many other community passions and commitment, Lee served on our CAC for more than 27 years. One of the longest serving CAC members, and many of those years he served as vice chair to the CAC. We deeply appreciated his ability to look for the positive in every scenario, and we were fortunate to be able to work with him for so many years. So to remember Lee, we put together some clips of previous public comments he made to the board, which are great examples of his personality and his commitment to the air quality mission. And we'd like to share that with you now. So can we please play the video?
I'm Lee Moldaver from the Community Advisory Committee. I think you can see just from the presentations today, both visual and oral, the thoroughness that your staff and your new director have moved us toward coming up with a really good ozone plan. I think you've noticed from the previous presentation by Mr. Cordes about the progress that we've made with your encouragement and your staff's hard work towards getting into a cleaner category. There was overwhelming support from the Community Advisory Committee to your board for adoption, both of the environmental analysis and of the ozone, the new clean air plan itself. And so I would strongly urge you to consider adopting both of them, Section A and Section B, at today's meeting. I don't think there's any organized opposition at all. And this level of progress would not be possible without the increased level of trust between businesses who are regulated under the stationary sources and your district staff, because I'm sure you noticed that there haven't been any letters from regulated industry either. Those of you who have been in public service for a while know that this is a tremendous sign of trust and progress between the regulated community, the environmental community, and your professional staff. And I think a lot of the credit goes to you for raising that bar and encouraging this to happen. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Lee Moldaver, a local resident. As some of you are aware, in a few weeks they're going to be recognizing the 50th anniversary of the Big Channel oil spill. And after that event, which made national news and changed national and state law in a lot of ways, this county kind of settled back into its more normal semi-rural mode for the late 70s and into the 80s, at which time there was a huge new series of oil and gas strikes, as the chair recalls, in the channel, and a lot of applications for the county on land to move and transport. And it was It was a pretty intense and contentious time, and the director of the Air District at the time, Mr. Ryerson, kind of lost his job related to some of that. And as we look through the times of his successors, Doug Allard and Terry Dressler and Colonel Van Mullum and Aaron, one of the constants that's really helped to elevate this district and county policy was the presence of the #1 University of Notre Dame football and basketball supporter, your legal counsel, Mr. Dillon. When you look at what you expect a legal counsel to do, which is to give you good advice without fear or favor, trying to find elements of fairness and justice within the letter of the law, and being accessible to all members of the board, to all clients of the district, including the regulated industry, and to all members of the public. It would be hard to imagine someone wrapping up 30 years of quiet, distinguished service who's offered a better example of what real public service on the local level means than your outgoing legal counsel, Bill Dillon. And since it's not on the agenda, I wanted to take 3 minutes of your time to thank him for everything he's done so quietly and so well, and to wish him well in the future, and to wish you all safe and happy holidays. Thank you. You know, it's been 2.5 years of work by your staff at your direction, and the reason for that is an innumerable number of meetings with state and federal regulators bringing stuff top down to our local area, and an innumerable number of meetings with regulated businesses throughout the county to get feedback face-to-face and in small meetings and draft and redraft the findings. The one thing Mr. Goldman went over very quickly, which I want you to have a better sense of understanding with that graphic of the balance scale, is that every other part of the state of California, the calculation for what your emissions are going to be if you're a regulated business are the potential to emit standard. And when we decided to go our own way 16 or 18 years ago, the calculations are so subjective and so complex that even newer members of your district staff are really top consultants. And I see Marianne Strange sitting back there, been doing it for years, couldn't always agree on what the right number was or what the right mitigation was. On top of that, you've been briefed over the years by the fact that depending where and when and how you measure, 20 to 40% of the emissions that this board is legally responsible with mitigating or taking care of are coming from transatlantic, trans-Pacific freighters and tankers who are cruising just inside or outside the islands for which we have no authority at all. But your district, with your support, has actually been involved with the federal negotiations for slower speed and cleaner fuel. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the District Board. I'm Lee Moldaver, a member of the Air District Advisory Committee, and I had 2 or 3 linked comments. First, this is a truly remarkable month on which to end the year. As Director Genet pointed out, this is the first time in the modern history of the county that we will be designated as in full attainment for all 4 state and federal clean air standards. And this is a line of, as you all know from many other things, what they call maintenance of effort that goes back to Director English, Director Ryerson, Director Allard, Director Dressler, Colonel Van Mullum, and now Director Genet, and all of the staff and all of the elected officials that have worked to get us to that point. So that's really, really remarkable. The second thing is, of course, that a regular visitor to Santa Barbara was the late Bill Ruckelshaus, a good friend of the Reagan family, who was the founding director of the US EPA, who was first charged with carrying out the Clean Air Act around the United States. And I just wish he got to within 6 weeks of living long enough to see us reach full attainment. When something this good happens after so much effort, it's usually not by accident.
Well, we're really glad that he was able to join us in our brief celebration of ozone attainment. And it's going to be a lot of huge shoes for us to fill, that level of commitment and participation at the CAC, and then bringing the voice of the CAC back to our board. So I am very fortunate to have the opportunity to meet him and help him. How he was an ambassador, I think, especially for the APCO, coming in conversations with all the different stakeholders that the CAC represents. And whether it's the profession or it's my personal running career, he always had some words of encouragement. And I just really appreciate the opportunity. I'm very thankful that he was able to work with us for so long.
And thank you so much for doing that, Director Williams.
Well, I knew Lee. I knew him for over 20 years, and not as long as probably Director Hart. I knew him, but just for anybody who's watching, who may not have known him, we're not celebrating him because he was the only person who came to our meetings. Though sometimes that was the case. We're celebrating him because he was so thoughtful, smart, and civil and positive. And I think, thoughtful and smart, sets yourself apart sometimes, but in this age, civil and positive really sets you apart. He did not just give us public comment, but often gave the Board of Supervisors and the City Council and other boards and commissions, including SBCAG, occasionally comments. And I can't remember in 20 years him saying anything bad about anybody, which, considering how often he offered public comment, is really remarkable. I will definitely miss Lee Moldaver.
Director Hart.
Yeah, I share everyone's sadness at Lee's passing, and just feel so grateful to have had the opportunity to know him and work with him over these many, many years. Lee was really a unique and wonderful person. He was, as Doss said, very considerate and kind and incredibly smart. And the thing that always amazed me was his memory. He could recall events from when I was a kid and my father was the library director that I couldn't remember. And he was unfailingly accurate about those things. And he has been involved in more things than any one person could ever imagine being connected to in this community. And we're all the richer for having known him and worked with him all those many years.
Are there any other comments on Zoom or from North County?
It does not appear we have any additional comments on Zoom.
I would just like to add that he was gracious, eloquent, and inscrutable. He was a friend, and he knew all the issues, all the people, all the history. And as you say, he had an encyclopedic memory. Nick Welsh wrote a column about him on July 31st, and I encourage anybody to read it, but it called him the most ubiquitous community activist and in many ways the most mysterious. He will be missed, and we'll continue to wonder about parts of him that we never got to know.
And that was intentional, I'm sure, right? Okay, well, thank you. The next item I wanted to report on was progress we've been making since our last board meeting on our Clean Air Rooms pilot program update. We're excited with the board's support and approval. We've been moving forward for this first come, first served program for the communities of Guadalupe and Casmelia. Since the board's approval, we've worked with county purchasing on the process for selecting a vendor for the devices, and they should be shipped later this month. We were able to purchase more than 650 units, finding a device that met our requirements, and it allowed us to buy the most devices possible to best use public funds. We've been working with the community partners on logistics for the distribution event, as well as county public health to ensure that the distribution of these devices is done safely in light of COVID. We have 2 distribution days scheduled in September. It's September 26th and 30th at the Guadalupe Dune Center. Now that we have the dates and locations, we'll be working with community partners to promote specific details of the program to Guadalupe and Casmelia residents. So if you represent the residents who are eligible for this program, we will be sharing promotional materials and information with your office so you can help us spread the word. And also, we're not just focusing this event solely on those 2 communities. We also want to take the opportunity to expand awareness of the importance of clean air rooms and do-it-yourself air purifiers and all the necessary steps folks should be doing in preparation for wildfire smoke in our area. And on that front, we did issue an air quality watch earlier this week based on the fires happening up in Northern California. If you go to the fire and smoke map, it combines all of the permanent air monitors and the purple air monitors and any EBAMs that have been deployed throughout the state, well, throughout the nation for that matter. It's a US EPA tool. And in addition to seeing the AQI at those monitoring stations, they also incorporate a plume from the smoke, and it gives you a better indication of what we will likely see at ground level at some point. Currently, it's been staying high in the atmosphere, and it hasn't been registering to a great extent at our monitoring network. But in the eastern part of the county, in the new Cuyama area, we have seen moderate recently, and even in the coastal areas, there's been hours when it might go into moderate. But it's much, much worse elsewhere in the state.
Director Julian seems to have a comment.
Director Julian.
Yes, thank you. Regarding the clean air monitors, I'm sure you are talking with the Dune Center, and they're now closed, and I'm assuming they're going to be open for the distributions.
Yes, they've actually volunteered space so we can have the purifiers shipped directly to the Dune Center, and we'll be doing an outdoor event the day of these 2 separate days at that facility.
Yeah, one I noticed is Sunday and the other one's Thursday. So do you know the hours?
I don't have the hours in front of me. Liz, is Liz on? Perhaps Liz could respond to the hours.
Yeah, I could get it later. I just needed to make sure we get that circulated so we got people that know where to go and when to go.
Okay, well, go ahead, Liz.
I was just going to say hi, Director Julian and board members. We're still finalizing the hours, but we will get that to you as soon as possible.
That works for me. Thank you.
Any other director comments? I would just like to add that this is a really important program. Our fire marshal, Rob Hazard, sent to me an article about the relationship between wildfire and COVID and how it can exacerbate symptoms and make them worse. And so I asked Dr. Ansorg, and he verified that that is a real concern. And so perhaps all of us on the board, when this happens, can follow up on your suggestion and promote via our email or social media newsletters how important it is to have a clean room and allow the lungs an opportunity to clean themselves out if we get a really smoky situation.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, turning to public comment. Do we have any public comment on matters not on today's agenda?
Does not appear we have any public comment at the moment.
All right, then moving to our discussion items. G1, our air quality report. Madam Clerk, would you read that into the record?
Discussion item G1, 2020 Annual Air Quality Report. Receive and file a presentation and 2020 Annual Ambient Air Quality Report for Santa Barbara County.
All right, today Molly Pearson, the Planning Division Manager, will be giving this presentation. And in addition to our annual air quality report, she will also be discussing our network plan that was recently circulated for public review.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Hartman and board members. I'm here to present the 2020 Air Quality Report. First, I'll talk about the air monitoring network, and then I'll go over the fires that impacted air quality in the fall of 2020. Then I'll review our particulate matter data and end with a discussion of ozone data. Is audio coming through?
Would you mind speaking into the microphone?
Can you hear it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go over the air quality report, talk about the monitoring network, go over fires that impacted the air quality in fall of 2020, then review PM data and discuss ozone data. So this map shows the network of permanent air monitoring stations that we have here in the county. Many of these stations are operated by the district. We currently have 3 dedicated staff that travel all over the county, maintaining and calibrating the equipment and reviewing and reporting the data. Some of these stations are operated by consultants, with the district reviewing and managing the data. There are 13 stations in all. The monitoring equipment is housed in a secure, temperature-controlled shelter, since some of the equipment is expensive and very sensitive to changing conditions. 9 stations measure ozone, 6 measure nitrogen dioxide. There are 4 with sulfur dioxide, 3 with CO or carbon monoxide, 3 with hydrocarbons, 3 with hydrogen sulfide, 5 with PM10, and 4 with PM2.5 particulate matter. These stations also measure meteorological conditions, and during 2020, we also deployed 8 portable monitors, 1 special purpose monitor. A meteorological monitoring station in Carpinteria was shut down, and we also maintain a network of low-cost sensors, which was presented to your board in January of this year. Each year, the district assesses the ambient air monitoring network and prepares a network plan that demonstrates that it meets federal requirements. This year, we posted the annual network for a 30-day public review period on May 30th. We received several comments related to air quality concerns in Western Goleta. After close of the comment period, the district provided a written response to each of the individuals that commented. The comments and responses are summarized in this table you see. The commenters raised concerns about hydrogen sulfide releases in Western Goleta and the desire to have a more robust monitoring and reporting system. The response indicated that the district's H2S monitoring requirements are generally established and enforced through district permit conditions for known sources of H2S. In addition, the district has a portable H2S monitor that can be deployed throughout the county in response to complaints or community concerns. This portable monitor, called an air pointer, was recently deployed in Western Goleta to measure hydrogen sulfide, or H2S. With the portable monitor, we have the advantage of being able to deploy it in different locations, depending on wind conditions and the suspected source of pollution. There were also comments related to particulate matter and other toxic releases. The district has a robust air monitoring network, especially when compared to other areas of the state with a similar size and population. Our network goes well beyond the minimum requirements. When specific industries emit pollutants, source-specific monitoring requirements are also established. And the air pointer portable monitor is equipped with instruments to measure hydrogen sulfide, hydrocarbons, ozone, particulate matter, and wind conditions. Another concern was related to odors from cannabis cultivation, and our response indicated that the County of Santa Barbara has jurisdiction over cannabis cultivation and associated odors. And the odors from cannabis operations are outside of the district's regulatory authority. While the comments received requested an expansion of the district's network to include an H2S monitor in the Western Goleta region, it's the district's goal to proactively use that air pointer portable monitor. It was purchased to assess local neighborhood issues that are not captured by our regional air monitoring network. And in 2019, Your board approved allocation of $108,000 to purchase this mobile monitor. Now it's in-house. Staff are actively deploying it to assist with compliance efforts and to protect public health. All right, so moving on to a different topic, the air quality report includes a discussion of how the 2020 wildfire events in California and the Pacific Northwest affected our air quality in August, September, and October. This next set of slides walks through some satellite images from the month of September and shows the AQI, or air quality index values, at our monitoring stations on those days, with green being good, yellow is moderate, orange is unhealthy for sensitive groups, and red is unhealthy for all. So at the start of September, local air quality had just improved, clearing out lingering smoke from August, as you see here on September 1st in the slide. By September 5th, fires in Los Angeles and other parts of California had smoke plumes, which were just starting to take shape. And then within a few days, smoke was very visible in the upper atmosphere, but our ground level monitors were still showing good to moderate conditions. There were days, including September 9th and 10th, where thick smoke was visible overhead. Here's September 9th. But the fine particles had not mixed down through the air column. You can see that we're still measuring green at all our stations. Here's September 10th, It was quite a blanket of smoke over us, but again, not picking them up on our monitors very much. Then, on September 11th, the smoke had mixed down, and our stations were picking up unhealthy readings. Once it had mixed, the same forces that were keeping it out were now keeping it in, and air quality didn't fully improve for nearly a week. I'm going to toggle through several slides just to show you what was going on. There's September 12th, starting to see orange, unhealthy for sensitive groups. Moving on to September 16th, we had some unhealthy readings in the North County. September 14th, unhealthy everywhere. And in this slide, you can see there's a bit of a smoke plume offshore that's blowing onshore, and there's these smoke plumes over in Southern California that are also blowing towards us. And there was smoke in the Bakersfield area as well, so complicated air movements. September 15th, still getting impacts. September 16th, starting to get better. And then September 19th, still a little bit of moderate, and you can see smoke plumes. So by the end of September, we were able to enjoy some clean air, but at the beginning of October, that brought more wildfires and more smoke impacts. All right, so shifting back to the air quality report, this graph shows particulate matter exceedances over the last 15 years. In 2020, there were 10 exceedances of the federal 24-hour PM 2.5 standard, that's the fine particulate, represented by the yellow bar on the far right. This demonstrates the magnitude of smoke impacts we experienced, second only to 2017. There were also nearly double the exceedances of state 24-hour PM10 standard compared to the previous year, partly due to wildfires, but also partly due to high wind events and dry conditions. These exceedances occurred in many different parts of the county, including Santa Maria, Lompoc, Santa Barbara, Goleta, and Las Flores Canyon. The district is currently designated non-attainment for the state PM10 standard, both the 24-hour and the annual average, and also attains all the other PM standards, or particulate matter. So shifting to ozone data, this graph shows the ozone exceedance days over the last 20 years. It's probably a pretty familiar chart for you, but we've added 2020 to it. Along with the particle emissions from wildfire smoke comes ozone precursors, and our hot temperatures and stagnant conditions contributed to higher ozone levels than previous years, as you can see on the far right for 2020. There are 3 air quality standards for ozone. The state and federal 8-hour standards are set at 70 parts per billion, and that's represented by the blue and red bars in the graph. Although the level of the standard is the same, the calculation methods are different, so that's why the count is not exactly the same each year. And then there's the state ozone standard set at 95 parts per billion. That's represented by the yellow bar. So during 2020, we had 6 days where we exceeded both the state and federal 8-hour standards, and there were 4 days that exceeded the state 1-hour standard. These exceedances occurred at the Santa Barbara, Las Flores Canyon, Carpinteria, and Paradise Road locations. The district does not currently meet the state 8-hour standard for ozone, based on data from 2017 to 2019. The California Air Resources Board shifted the designation back to non-attainment earlier this year, and we expect that designation to be finalized later this year. The Air Quality Index, this graph on the left shows the breakdown of AQI days for the last 20 years. The Air Quality Index is a gauge for classifying the health effects of multiple pollutants on the same scale. So the AQI for the county is the highest measuring pollutant for each day, which is typically ozone or particulate matter. An index value between 0 and 50 is green, meaning good air quality. 51 to 100 is yellow for moderate. And above 100, there are different colors for unhealthy air, starting with orange, then red, purple, and maroon. So in 2020, you can see on the right, apart from the 12 days with significant smoke impacts, we still had 97% of all days in the year in either the good or moderate AQI category. This table shows that 275 or 75% of the days were good. 75 or 22% of the days were moderate. 8 or 2% of the days were unhealthy for sensitive groups. And 4 days or 1% of the days were unhealthy. So in summary, despite the challenges we had in 2020 with wildfires occurring elsewhere, we had a relatively clean year in terms of the air quality index. As we're all well aware, wildfires elsewhere can create challenges for our air quality here, both in terms of ozone and particulate matter. High wind events can increase the PM impacts from wildfires. And once the smoke enters our air basin, we've learned that hot and stagnant conditions can cause it to stick around for a while, both the particle pollution and the ozone. And it creates conditions that are conducive to ozone formation. We did not record any exceedances for the nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, or carbon monoxide standards during 2020. So here's my contact information, and happy to answer questions.
Questions or comments?
We have one comment from Director Prody.
Go ahead. Excuse me.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Chair Hartman, for chairing this meeting today. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank staff for the response letters to all those that wrote in with concerns on the western end of Goleta, requesting a permanent H2S monitor. I have a comment and then I have questions. My first comment is that for those that may not have know that several years ago, I'm wanting to say it was 2016, we had a situation on the western end of Goleta where H2S was at dangerous levels, and they weren't able to, the monitor was not available, and APCD we weren't able to locate where it was coming from. It was a pretty frightening experience for the people that live on the western end of Goleta, which I am one of them. I was not home at the time. I was in San Diego at a family event, but my daughter and her 2 children were house sitting at my home, and they didn't know what to do. And I didn't know what to tell them. Close the windows, open the windows, finally they just packed up and left, took the dogs and went, and the babies. So, you know, that's the story of why people feel so strongly on the western end, especially with the approval coming soon, I'm sure, from the county for the cannabis grow out in our canyon, White Lightning. It will be appealed, but it will probably go through and be approved. And they will use irrigation from wells. And that was the source of H2S problem in 2016. So I guess my question to you is about when, first of all, if when we just decommission, when Platform Holly is decommissioned, will those monitors that are there go away? Will we not even have those on the western end? That's my first question.
Yes, they will. It's a permit condition that's in place right now. We have H2S fence line requirement at the EOF Elwood onshore facility. That's in place through the decommissioning, as is the H2S monitor that's at West Campus, UCSB. Those are both related to the oil and gas operations, and that's what's making that source of monitoring possible currently.
And then I guess my second question is that there has been talk of putting a permanent monitor, air monitor out at when Fire Station 10 is built, and that, you know, that's going to be a while. So I'm wondering if there is a opportunity to have a conversation with finding another location, especially on the western end, especially with cultivation starting and using well waters. Maybe at our school, there's an Elwood School or Brandon School, or maybe Sandpiper. Have we had that discussion, and is that something that this body could look into, and how would we move forward with that?
We have been in contact with Brandon School. We were talking with them last year, actually, as far as a potential deployment of the air pointer. And actually, after we received a complaint about a week and a half ago of H2S odors, and we were able to get the air pointer deployed. When was it put out there?
12th.
When?
August 12th.
August 12th. We were able to deploy the air pointer out at the Brandon Elementary School. The big benefit that we have with this portable is we can move it around. So we can, if it's not showing up at the Brandon Elementary, we have the opportunity to find another location. And I feel that we haven't fully utilized the air pointer yet to show the benefit that it can provide to the community. Just being able to be mobile with it is so important. If we were to pick one site and only have one station there, it might not be the right location, and we might miss an opportunity for doing what we can with the mobile. So that's in place right now. We've been monitoring it for over a week, or right around a week. The levels have been extremely low. And that's another comment I want to bring up is monitoring is great, but it doesn't tell you where the source is coming from. So it requires not only our monitoring efforts, but also the investigation with our compliance staff to go out and do an investigation to get a better understanding of where the source of H2S is coming from. And over the years, since the 2016 incident, we have been working closely with the Ag Commissioner's office, trying to work with the fields in the surrounding area of those who have been impacted. And we seem to have a better understanding of where it's coming from. And even in our comment letter to the county on the White Lightning project, we even identified in this region the potential impact from irrigation and the need for implementation of mitigation measures to ensure that the operator is fully aware of the potential irrigation may have to nearby residents.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your comments. The problem that happened in 2016 was that the air monitor wasn't available.
Right.
And it was a weekend. So if we had something more permanent in place, and it really does need to be on the western end, because that's where the agriculture is all using well water in the western end. And that's where, you know, over the years, but it was never as bad as the 2016 situation where people were actually getting sick. So, you know, I'm just here to plead my case for the community, my community where I live, and our fears, and they're legitimate fears. And, you know, I know it would really mean a lot to the community, especially with White Lightning going in. I'm sure they'll be approved. To do something more permanent, and it would probably be better at Elwood because of that location. But Brandon might work too, but Elwood be closer to where the problems are coming from.
Okay, and
Thank
I know we can follow up with Elwood. In the past, there's been some reservations from the school for a sighting location, but we can follow up with them to see if they'd be interested. And then it would also give us an opportunity with this air pointer to move it between the two to see where we're observing the highest levels.
And it'll be at certain times of the year. It's not year
Yep.
round. And-
Yeah, we seems to always hit, is it the September, October
October.
timeframe? It seems to always hit that time of year, and it's a joke in-house because we seem to get the most complaints when one of my staff has her annual anniversary. So we're hopeful now that we have the air pointer currently deployed that we're ready for it. And I think that will be a huge benefit when the public can realize that we already have it deployed and we're ready for it when it happens.
Well, I just want to make one quick remark that, we have a different superintendent now. It's been a while since maybe you've spoken with, at the top level. It might be possible to put something in Elwood.
We'll definitely follow up.
Thank you. That's all I'm asking. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to thank Director Perotti for taking the lead on that item and really appreciate Ms. Janae's willingness to work collaboratively and make this a priority and stay engaged on the issue. So thank you for that. And I also want to just thank Ms. Pearson for the really excellent presentation. That was so fascinating to look through the slide deck and see the dates and see how, the smoke is so obviously coming from these fire sources, but it isn't registering because it's up in the upper air. And then finally, when it's clear, ironically, on the satellite photos, the air quality has degraded at the ground level. It's just a fascinating way to show how things change and how important it is to stay current on the monitoring system and check the website to understand, what we're looking at from a health consequence to residents living here on the ground. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
We have a comment from Director Uhrig.
Director Urick?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. A question related to the air quality and where the monitors were. In the slides, it appeared that there was only 4 locations. And I was just wondering if there was any further south of Santa Barbara, at least that's what it appeared to be. Are those permanent ones, or where are those actually being monitored at? And then 2, what is the criteria to have the portable monitor come to an area? And does it need to be elevated, or does it need to be on the ground more, or different types of, maybe not at the base of a mountain or a hill because of some of the sundowner and wind effects that might create? I was noticing Chair Perotti had mentioned that it was out, she felt better out at Elwood and or maybe it's Sandpiper, and those are more out on the coast. So I was just wondering, what is that criteria for that monitor to be best utilized for all of us, not just Western Goleta? But I have grandkids and kids that live right there as well, right next to Brandon School. So I totally am on board with whatever we can get to help out our little area down there in Western Goleta.
Okay. Thank you for the comments, and I will at least take the first one. You were asking about the slides and where those monitors are located. It's not precise, but we were trying to indicate. So the top one is in Santa Maria, and that's located on Broadway in Santa Maria. The one in Lompoc it's also a fixed monitor on H Street in Lompoc. The one in the center is actually our Santa Ynez special purpose monitor. It's measuring PM 2.5 there. And the one down by Santa Barbara is the Santa Barbara station that's located at the Armory near the high school and junior high. We also have a station in Goleta. We also have multiple low-cost sensors and sometimes EBAMs deployed. But we just thought that these 4 locations kind of represented what was going on in the county at this time.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was mentioning earlier, that fire and smoke map. I hope everyone has that bookmarked. It's incredibly useful to include not only all of our permanent stations, and that's what's depicted on this map, or our reference stations, federal reference methods are stored in these air monitoring stations. But the low-cost sensors, we have been deploying, I think we have over 40, close to 45 low-cost sensors, the purple air sensors now throughout the region. And we have more that we're working with schools. We're trying to get those all located at our elementary schools or high schools throughout the area. And then on the portable device, the air pointer, we need electricity. That's one of our requirements. Security is important to us as well, since it is such an expensive unit. We don't want someone just pulling up and taking off with it, even with our locked wheel that we have available. We also have other PM monitors. We call them EBAMs. They're what we use during prescribed fires, or even in Carpinteria during the wildfire impacts last year. We installed an EBAM right outside the city hall. So those, they also need electricity. And as far as the location, geographic location, I think as long as we have electricity, it's something that we can consider. When we're establishing our federal reference methods, we have to follow the guidelines associated with the proximity to trees, the proximity to busy infrastructure like a street or a highway. But with our portables, we have a little bit more flexibility. Caitlin, you have something to add? On the compliance? Okay, please. Caitlin's going to add a little bit more on monitoring from a compliance perspective.
Hi, my name is Caitlin McNally, and I'm the manager of the compliance division at the district. And we actually have a group consisting of both compliance staff and monitoring staff that has put together our plan for how to deploy the air pointer and what Aaron just mentioned, the EBAMs. And we look at whether there's any ongoing compliance issues, and if we feel that it would be a good option to have the air pointer or an EBAM deployed, we would bring that to management for review and approval. And we do already have a list of potential sites throughout the county that we can deploy this at that have the criteria that Aaron just mentioned.
Thank you. Are there any more comments, questions?
No further comments from board members. on this.
Okay, well, I keep thinking about what Director Perotti said, that people didn't know what to do. And I'm looking at our website and just wondering if people do have concerns. The thing about hydrogen sulfide is you do smell it. Where do you go and find out about it and register a complaint, or can we accommodate that on our website? I know in other areas, sometimes people smell sewage treatment plants, or how do they, can you just describe, they're anxious, what do they do?
Well, I think what we've learned in the past, 911, if they're anxious, go to the dispatcher, and we have a system where we're working with that system if it's an air quality related issue. On our website, I think your idea, putting more information specific to H2S on as a hot topic, where it'd be right at our homepage, especially when we know we're getting complaints.
In the fall, yeah.
Yeah, and we have a complaint line and an online form where they can register their complaints.
And where do you get that on our website? I mean, how do you get to the complaint form? I wasn't quite sure.
Can you toggle on the screen? Perotti also has.
We have a really nice website that's clean
Yes.
and elegant, but I wasn't sure where you would do that.
This is a great opportunity to showcase our website. Thank you.
Under permits and compliance at the top, under compliance, there's complaints, and you click there. And then here we have all the information, including our phone number and an online complaint form that can be filled out and submitted to us.
Good, okay, well, you have to get to permits and complaints, but
Yeah.
I like the idea, especially in the fall, of having something on the hot topic.
And if you can go back to the homepage, I can
Yes.
illustrate what. one of these boxes could be devoted to that purpose. We also, for our website, we have it for wildfires, just so you're aware, when we are inundated for smoke from wildfire, we have a separate splash page that's created just to provide information to the public on wildfires in English and their Spanish as well.
And that's somewhat area specific, isn't it?
Yeah,
Within the county?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, I know a lot of people use that.
Director Prodi has a comment.
Oh, yes, please, Director Prodi.
Well, thank you. I think that's really helpful. The education, the outreach, and an easy place for people to go to. The problem is that if it's on the weekend, I don't know if anybody's going to pick it up. The second problem is that what I have witnessed in my community, people are hesitant to call 911. Believe it or not, they think they're busy. Oh, should I, and I have been really trying to reach out to my neighbors and say, no, if you smell it, call 911. They'll come out, that's their job. So that is a problem, they and finding it, and then the weekend, but also calling 911. So I think it could be more outreach education, especially since we're going into the fall. That would be a good thing.
I think that's a great idea. And one thing I did want to bring to the board's attention, I've implemented with my management team a duty officer role. So there's someone that's assigned to cover air quality concerns that may happen during the weekend hours. So we rotate through that, and it provides us the flexibility or the opportunity to engage in an air quality, top profile air quality issue, even if it isn't our Monday through Friday work schedule.
So could you describe a little more how that works? Somebody's on duty off hours.
We have the duty officer email registered with the county OEM. So if there's anything that comes up, the duty officer email would receive it, and whoever's assigned to that is checking the duty officer emails regularly. So that's why 911 still is extremely important. But if emails are coming in, or if we're assessing, like right now, what we've been doing as duty officers, really looking at the local air quality conditions to see how bad the smoke is. Just recently, I think it was last weekend, we actually had to issue a news release on a Saturday. And it was very fortunate that we had the duty officer system in place, and we were able to get some messaging happening, even though it wasn't a work day.
Well, I've learned a lot. Thank you very much for explaining that. I think we all now have a better sense, both smoke and hydrogen sulfide, how to get more information quickly, what to do. Is there any public comment on this matter?
Chair Hartman, we received 5 public comments, all of which have been distributed to all board members and posted on the APCD website.
So we don't have anybody in person. We have the packet that we got.
Correct. No one on Zoom.
All right, thank you. So this is an informational item only. We don't have to vote. So we're turning to item G2, our enforcement program presentation. And would you read that into the record, Madam Clerk?
Certainly. Discussion item G2, District Enforcement Program. Receive and file a presentation from district staff on the district's enforcement program.
Caitlin, very fortunate that Caitlin and Molly are both here to help us on both of the items. But Caitlin McNally, our compliance division, I was going to say enforcement division, our compliance division manager is here to present. And this was a follow-up from a conversation we had at our last board meeting on a specific source. This is providing more general overview on our compliance program in total.
Thank you, Erin. So good afternoon, Chair Hartman and members of the board. I am here today to present on the enforcement program, as Erin mentioned. So here are the topics that I'll be covering today. The goals of our enforcement program, our notice of violation, the enforcement options that we evaluate for ongoing compliance issues, including variance, compliance agreement, order for abatement, civil or criminal prosecution, and then our mutual settlement program and the board's authority with these items. So the enforcement program goals are first and foremost to protect public health and the environment, which is consistent with the district's mission. We also want to ensure air pollution control requirements are met by motivating and educating regulated sources. and we want to promote regulatory equity in the marketplace. We achieve our goals through the Notice of Violation, or NOV, process. The NOV documents the violation. It also initiates corrective action by the source to reduce air pollution and comply with the applicable requirements. There are also monetary penalties associated with the NOV, which act as an incentive for continuing compliance in the future. Violations are discovered by the district in a variety of ways. First is during inspections. We conduct routine inspections of each permitted facility on a regular basis. Depending on the type of source, inspections may occur quarterly, semi-annually, annually, every 2 years, or every 3 years. Second, we may discover violations during our review of air quality records. They are reviewed each year after the annual report is submitted by the source. We also review records during inspections and as needed when one-off submittals are received. We can also discover violations during complaint investigations, which are typically conducted within 3 or at most 24 hours. Violations may be discovered when conducting surveillance inspections, which we do regularly to ensure regulatory equity in the marketplace. Lastly, we may find violations when other agencies refer potential air quality enforcement items to us. We have positive working relationships with many other agencies throughout the county who coordinate with us regularly. This photo shows a visible emission violation from the baghouse exhaust on an asphalt batch plant, which was discovered during a complaint investigation. In response, the operator immediately shut down the operation and performed maintenance on the equipment to resolve the issue. The statute of limitations for the district to issue and settle an NOV is 3 years from the date of discovery by the district. Most NOVs are issued the same day or within a few days from discovery. Sometimes we run across more complicated violations which take longer to issue due to the time needed to review the situation, gather information from the source, research the applicable regulations, and document the violation accurately. When a source is notified of a violation, they are expected to take immediate action to comply. This may consist of immediate repairs or shutting down the operation until the situation can be rectified, like I mentioned earlier. Each day of non-compliance is an additional count of violation. I want to clarify that we don't issue a separate NOV for each day of violation, and instead we keep track of the number of days and take that into account when we settle the NOV for monetary penalties. The source is also expected to respond within 10 days to document the corrective action that was taken. After the NOV is complied with, the district may reinspect to verify compliance. And this photo on the right shows a type of violation that would be reinspected. The district inspectors here are using a toxic vapor analyzer, or TVA, to see if there are any hydrocarbon leaks coming from the hatch of a flare scrubber at an oil and gas facility. When a source cannot achieve compliance in a timely manner, the district reviews our enforcement options, which are listed here. We communicate with the source to help determine the best option for the situation and then proceed accordingly. I'll go over each of these enforcement options in more detail on the next slides. And this photo here shows a hole in the flare boom piping on one of the offshore platforms. Although the platform was no longer operating to produce oil, they were still required to operate the flare to control fugitive emissions from wells, so they saw it and were granted a variance, which is one of the enforcement options I'll describe in more detail. The first enforcement option, which I just mentioned, is the variance, which is an administrative order granted by the district hearing board. The hearing board is a quasi-judicial decision-making body which is appointed by your board. The source is not in violation while operating under an approved variance because that document legally allows continued operations which do not comply. Variances are temporary, and for specific requirements, they're not a blanket coverage. The variance itself has conditions which require regular updates on the compliance status and progress being made. The hearing board reviews the following items before approving variances. The second enforcement option is a compliance agreement between the district and the source. Unlike the variance option, under a compliance agreement, the source is still in violation and subject to penalties for each day of violation. The agreement outlines the expeditious path to compliance with specific steps and deadlines that need to be made or met. The agreement also includes the associated NOV penalties and a schedule for paying them. The third and more severe enforcement option is an order for abatement. It's an enforceable order sought by the district by petitioning the hearing board. The hearing board may grant the order for good cause if they make the finding that the source is in violation. An order for abatement requires specific actions to comply or shut down operations. Instead of an order for abatement, the hearing board may grant a stipulated order for abatement, which is very similar but has the following differences. The hearing board is not required to make the finding that the facility is in violation, and the conditions of the order are agreed in advance by the district and the source. The last and most serious enforcement option is civil or criminal prosecution. This option is reserved for violations which show blatant disregard for the law. For our district, we refer these cases to the Santa Barbara County District Attorney, which is an independent enforcement agency. The DA may seek an injunction to stop continued operations or compel the source to take actions to comply. When an NOV is referred to the DA, they also handle the monetary penalties instead of the district, and I'll talk about our mutual settlement process next. For NOVs that are not referred to the DA, after compliance is achieved, the NOV is processed in our mutual settlement program for monetary penalties. Settling the NOV consists of negotiating and finalizing an agreement between the APCO and the source, which identifies the monetary penalties that will be paid. These are a deterrent and create a level playing field for the sources we regulate. The settlement process helps both the district and source avoid the time and expense of litigation. However, if an agreement cannot be made, the district may refer the settlement to the DA. And the last item is the board authority with these items. In order to keep your board informed, we provide you with monthly NOV reports that list the NOVs issued each month and the NOV payments received as a result of the mutual settlement process I just described. I want to clarify that even if the NOV is still ongoing, it will not be listed in the NOV report again until payment is received for the monetary penalties. The enforcement option process, which I described earlier, including evaluating the options and making decisions on how to proceed, is outside of the purview of your board, and the district staff closely track ongoing violations and proceed with the most appropriate enforcement option from the list I identified earlier. In addition, the negotiations and monetary penalty settlements are at the discretion of the APCO and outside of your board purview. And that concludes my presentation. Here's my contact information, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. McNally. Do directors have any questions or comments?
We have a comment from Director Uhrig.
Director Uhrig.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just on when it goes to the point of the egregious violation that gets filed with the DA, does that go to the civil part first to get an injunction, and then it becomes a criminal after they violate that injunction if it continues, or does it go directly to the criminal part of it? Just is more for my education than anything. Thank you.
Chair Hartman, Director Uhrig, the district attorney has a lot of discretion. They can pursue both civil and criminal options. So we were just talking to them about a different matter. I believe they can seek I think is a civil injunction, and then should it not be complied with, then there might be some potential criminal options.
Thank you.
We have a comment from Director Sierra.
Holly?
Thank you very much, Chair Hartman. My understanding is that APCD, the executive director, would try to reach a settlement with the offender. If that doesn't work and it's passed on to the district attorney's office, the fines that are collected, does APCD still get the fine, whatever the penalty is, or does our county district attorney's office keep that?
Yes, we have an agreement with the DA that is specific to our agency and the DA where we get 50% of the penalties agreed upon by the DA for our
Okay.
part of the violations.
Thank you. So it makes a lot of sense if APCD can reach a settlement without having it go to the district attorney's office.
Yes, that's our goal.
Thank you very much.
We don't seem to have any additional comments from board members on Zoom.
I had a few questions about reporting. What do we require from the regulated community in terms of report? I mean, at most of the NOVs we see are annual reports, but do they report on a more quarterly basis, and are they responsible, other than complaints and inspections, to be monitoring their emissions?
Yes, Chair Hartman, for your first question, the annual reports, most sources are required to report on an annual basis, and that's all. However, our larger Title V sources subject to federal restrictions are required to submit a semi-annual compliance verification report, so that's once every 6 months. And then we have some miscellaneous reports that are due more, or outside of the annual report process. For example, if a source is required to conduct a source test, they would need to submit the report for that 45 days after they conduct that. So it can vary depending on the source.
But
And
a lot, if I may, a lot depends on the fidelity or the integrity of the reports of the regulated community.
yes,
And so sometimes, I mean, if you don't do these reports or you don't do it correctly, that could be a big penalty, because we really do rely on people to be honest.
yes. And we do look at the reporting that they are, or the records they are keeping while we inspect them as well, so they get another look outside of the annual report process. And then in response to your second question, yes, we have a monitoring condition in each permit that we issue where the source needs to monitor their operations to ensure that they're meeting the restrictions in the permit and the emission limits in their permits.
So this is more a speculative question, but in water, they're starting to do real-time monitoring that is actually on the web, and citizens can watch that. It has a different enforcement structure, but do you see that ever happening in the air arena?
So certain sources, but it's a very small percentage of all of our sources, are required to do continuous emission monitoring and have a CEMS unit, it's the acronym, CEM, to continuously monitor the stack of their equipment to ensure that they're meeting the emission limits for it. It's very expensive and time-consuming process, so it's not required of every source.
Well, thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Chair Hartman, we did not receive any public comment.
Okay, and we don't need a vote on this item either. Any final questions or comments from the board?
Not seeing anything on Zoom.
All right, well, I think that concludes our meeting today. It'll be rebroadcast Sunday, August 22nd, and we will meet again 1 p.m. October 21st. Thank you. Adjourned.
Thank you.